Magic Round was absolutely fantastic, and so many results went the other way. But we're on to double digits this week. It's time for round 10. What a weekend we had at Magic Round, guys. Brisbane was absolutely pumping, and I felt so honoured to be there. Thank you so much, SwiftX, for the tickets, and thank you to the Caxton Street Brewing Co. for having me and Longy there on Saturday afternoon. And thanks to everyone who came out. It was great to meet some of you guys and have a chat about NRL, fantasy, Supercoach, whatever your fix was. It was fantastic. But, guys, I am back to do what I always do, and it is tips and predictions. But before we get into that, guys, a reminder to like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week. Longy and I are working on some great new content for you guys as well, so stay tuned for some of that. And now we will do what we always do, and that is go through last week's tips and predictions. And honestly, I didn't get going until Sunday in Magic Round. It was a bit upsetting. I thought the Parramatta were a chance in that game against the Sharks, and no doubt they were, but there was a couple of really iffy calls, if you want to call it that, that really didn't favour Parramatta, especially the one with Ronaldo Mulatalo, and then Iro. We found out later that he dropped the ball over the line for the Sharks' first try as well. So unlucky for Parramatta in this game, I think, and I still think the Sharks are not playing to anywhere near their full potential. For the Dolphins, I backed them in this game heavily. I put on a big bet. I thought they were going to get up. At Suncorp Stadium, it's their home away from home, as it were. They just didn't turn up at all. I think they lacked a lot of go forward. They really couldn't handle any of the Roosters' attack as well. And the Roosters put up a score, even with Sandon Smith going down in the first 10 minutes of the game. Big props to the Roosters, but the Dolphins have to go back to the drawing board. Now, the Knights, they finally got a big win. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than the scoreline suggests, but the Knights, they came out, they pumped it, they put up the most points out of any game that they've played this season so far, and the Rabbitohs, man, they just didn't have enough troops. They got torn apart up the middle, on the edges. Fletcher Sharp absolutely killed it, 3 tries. Ponga was outstanding. I thought Bradman Best finally got some early ball and was able to cook. And it's amazing what happens when you have those destructive players and you give them room to move and you give them opportunities. It just boggles belief that they don't do it more often. For my Cowboys, and this comes back to the same point that I've been making a lot, it's that I don't trust Jake Clifford. 30 seconds out from halftime, we are in no position to score, but Clifford somehow throws the ball straight to Adam Pompey, who runs 70 metres to score. He hit him on the chest. Like, Pompey didn't even have to reach for that. I think that went a long way to costing us that game. But the Wales fans were absolutely incredible. Thank you guys for a big game. And I honestly thought it was the most watched game of Magic Round out of all the games that I was there to see. The Dragons followed that up with not a great performance at all. I'm just going to say one player's name, and I think it's the player that we all know, Jaden Sewer. Mate, just hold on to the ball and you go into halftime 4 points down, not 16 points, and that heavily cost them the game. I don't want to pin it on one person, but if you had to, it would be Jaden Sewer. For the Dogs, yeah, they got a big win against Titans, good on them. And the Panthers, I picked the Panthers to win this game. Now, I feel like I've been banging my head up against the wall picking the Panthers, but they definitely had their best performance of the season so far. This Broncos team really hyped, coming off a brilliant performance the weekend before. Couldn't contain him. Could not hold Nathan Cleary at all. They roughed him up a little bit. No doubt he's been getting roughed up a fair bit in this season. But that try that he scored just told me that he was on that night and no one was going to stop him. And their defence, it came back. They only managed to score 8 points, the Broncos. Adam Reynolds, 1 week, fantastic. Next week, shocker. I'm not loving it at this point in time. And the last game, the Raiders. Now, this was extremely controversial. I don't care if you think it was a high tackle. It bounced up off the ball. Jared Sutton, if you go back and watch it, Liera hits the ball first, and then it ricochets up into Hudson Young's face. Unfortunately, there is this duty of care element in the game, and I don't love it, but it just kind of put a dampener on the end of Magic Round. I think everyone wanted to see a golden point game. We finally got one, and it was ended by a penalty goal. It's just a little bit poor in my opinion. But those are the results from last week, guys. Only 4 out of 8 tips correct. With a lot of 50-50 games, I'll take it, but I definitely expected to do a bit better. And no doubt I wanted to have a bit more fun watching the games on Saturday night. It was just Cowboys lost, then Dragons lost, and I was like, oh, God, now I've got to go back to the hotel room all sad. But guys, let's move on to next week's tips. Alrighty, guys, the first game of round 10 is the Eels taking on the Dolphins at CommBank Stadium. Now, the Eels, I thought they were inspiring last week. I definitely thought that they had what it took to take on the Sharks. And the Sharks, well, they're not playing some of their best football at the moment. So I really thought that they could maybe nab one when, the Sharks aren't really feeling very confident right now. Iro came back and pretty much snuffed that out pretty quickly. They scored 2 early tries and they were on the back foot from that point on. Same could be said for the Dolphins. They just were on the back foot constantly, couldn't get the hammer any room to move. And as soon as they did, he managed to come away with 2 tries. Like it boggles belief sometimes how much they don't use the hammer in some games. But when they do get him some space with the ball, I definitely think he could be the fullback for Origin for Queensland this year. It definitely is something that could come into consideration. I know there's a lot of conjecture around that specific position. Before this game, I definitely think the Eels have the edge here. Mitch Moses is back. They're playing much better football. They're playing more confident football. I know Zach Lomax is currently out of the team, but I think they're doing okay without him. He only adds to what they could potentially be in this season right now. It definitely is looking a lot better than the first couple of weeks of the season. Put it that way. Same could be said for the Dolphins, man. They're just a way better team than being 15th, 16th on the ladder. But someone's got to finish there at the moment. And I've got to tell you, after the 9 weeks of the competition that we've had, I cannot tell you with any level of confidence who's going to win the comp and who's going to be at the bottom of the ladder. It's ridiculous, but I do think this will be a very entertaining game, a pretty high scoring one. I would back the overs if I knew what the overs was. I think it would probably be in the realm of something like 50 and a half, 51 and a half, something like that. Parramatta have been pretty good at home. They've lost a couple of games at home, but they haven't been terrible when they played at CommBank Stadium. I think the Dolphins, it's a little too much to travel, especially on the big emotions of Magic Round. Yes, they didn't have a great performance, and yes, Parramatta are probably going to struggle in some certain areas defensively, but that Moses confidence at the moment is sky high, and the Eels are riding it, and I think they ride themselves to a win in this one. Let's go the Eels, 1-12. The second game of round 10 is the Knights taking on the Titans at McDonald Jones Stadium. Now, the Knights were fantastic last week. Loved some of the attack that they were playing with. I thought Fletcher Sharp was absolutely outstanding. And the Titans, man, they just goes from worse to worse. If you had to pick a team that's going to win the spoon right now based on the last 5 weeks of form, geez, the Titans have to be top of that list. They are not pulling it together whatsoever, and this team is so talented for them to be playing the way that they are. It's just not good enough, and I think Des Hasler is under the pump massively, but the playing group does believe in him. I am interested to see if Foreign comes back this week. He's due back from that bicep injury, and they do need a steering 7 in there. I think Foreign could be the answer in that regard, because when Weaver went down on the weekend, I didn't love what I saw from Brimson in the kicking game, and I think the Dogs knew exactly where the ball was going on the last tackle. Chris Randall isn't going to be doing any kicking whatsoever, and Brimo, when Weaver, when Foreign, when Campbell are in the team, he doesn't do any of the kicking, so he had to step up in a massive way, and it's a way that he's not used to, AJ Brimson, and it's no surprise that they ended up having a score put on them as well. They can't get the defensive structure right whatsoever. So I am worried about that, but it is so typical Knights, or it would be so typical Knights, to play the team that has lost 5 in a row back into some form, especially at home. They love disappointing some of their home fans. Sorry, Knights fans, but they do love a cheeky loss at home. And I'm going to back the Titans this week. I think that there's been a lot of noise about them. They need a response, and this is a big game. They've already beaten the Knights this year. They know they can do it, but can they do it again? My answer is yes. I think the Titans go to McDonald Jones Stadium and grab a win, 1-12. People are going to call me crazy, I know, and people are always going to say that it's my Knights hate showing or coming to the floor. Yes, it is. Let's go the Titans, 1-12. We move to the second game on Friday night, where it is the Rabbitohs taking on the Broncos at Accor Stadium. Now, this Rabbitohs side are the walking wounded right now. They have 10 players from their top 30 currently sitting on the NRL casualty ward. They do get some of those players back this week, or they at least are due to be back. Latrell, we know about. He had a 1 week suspension, but Jamie Humphries is the interesting one for me. Surely he comes straight back into that number 7 role. They are a winning team with him in the side, and he's had some great moments to start this year. I would be very surprised if he doesn't retake that number 7 jersey and keep it for the rest of the season. Dodd, Jaden Sullivan have not been the answer. They weren't the answer on the weekend. They provided nothing of the kind of caliber that Jamie Humphries provided in the first 4 weeks of the season, but it is tough when you don't have the troops to back up your play. And I think Jamie Humphries could struggle this week. And there's one team that you don't want to play when you don't have the troops, and that is the Brisbane Broncos, because their forward pack, especially on the back of getting bullied last week by the Panthers, Haas still had a fantastic game, but he was alone out there. Aside from Cobbo having a bit of a crack, no one really backed that up. I thought Hunt and Reynolds were extremely poor, but they do get Ezra Mam back this week. Now, that is super interesting. Not by popular opinion, let's be honest. He got booed quite heavily when he was shown on screen at Magic Round, and I was part of the crowd. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of feeling with him coming back into the side, but where he fits in is a mystery to me. But Madge came out and pretty much said that he's going to be straight back into the team. He loves what Ezra can provide, and I think him back at 6 provides them with a lot of attacking spark. And then you move Hunt to hooker, and that is definitely an upgrade on what they do have there at the moment with Billy Walters and Corey Pags. No disrespect to those guys, but they are not the caliber of player that Ben Hunt is. I think the Broncos get a pretty easy win this week. I'm not going to say, well, let's not say it's going to be easy, because the Rabbitohs made it not easy for anyone this season, and they can break a few weak-minded teams with their stout defensive game. And the Rabbitohs, don't get me wrong, have the fight inside them to be able to play at a higher level, and they often this year have played up to their opposition and played down to their opposition as well. So, with the Broncos being talked about as this top 4 team, and I will reiterate on the Last Minute Madness podcast last week, I just said that I think this Broncos side are being a little bit overhyped. They're getting way too much attention. They haven't earned that. They're looking really dodgy, if you ask me. They're the hot and cold Broncos. This week, I expect them to be a little bit hotter, and I think they'll run through this wounded Rabbitohs side, despite the fact that Latrell will be back in the team. Let's go the Broncos, 13 plus. We go to Super Saturday, and what a game this has now shaped up to be. The second place team versus the first place team 10 rounds into the season. It's the Raiders versus the Dogs. And I got to tell you, I did not see the Raiders in this position 10 rounds into the season at all. I really thought that they were going to be bottom 4 team. They've still got, a young half in there. He's still trying to learn his game. One Fogarty injury, and they could potentially be spooners at that point in time. I didn't even think that they were going to be in the conversation for making the top 8. I'll openly admit to that, and I do apologise for Raiders fans, but they are playing some fantastic football. And what I'm scared about for this Dogs team, they weren't perfect on the weekend, the Dogs. They let in some pretty easy tries. Their team is a little bit weakened at the moment. They'll still be without Josh Curran. They won't have Tupanua. They won't have Jacob Preston. He's potentially going to fight that charge for a crusher tackle. And if you look at the replays, it definitely looks like a crusher tackle. And I think Jacob Preston could be spending at least a week on the sideline. But yeah, I did love what they did on the weekend. I thought Critter stood up in a big way with a team that lacks a little bit of creativity right now. He provided it, and he's often known as one of the best defensive centers in the game. But on the weekend, he showed us why he is a big game player. Magic Round, all eyes on you, Sunday afternoon. I know you're playing the Titans, but he still took it very seriously and came up with some great moments for Karaz to get over to score. And man, Karaz, again, I think he needs to be picked for Origin at this point. With Zach Lomax and Brian To'o spending a lot of time on the sideline to start this season, Carraz did spend a lot of time at the start of the season, but he has just come back better than ever, and I absolutely love it. I think Carraz is a future Blues superstar. As for the tip goes, wow, like I'm so torn. I think the Dogs is all grit, it's all in your face, line speed versus a Raiders team that's so powerful. They won't have Corey Horsburgh though, and that definitely does hurt them. We cannot make that misstep there. Corey Horsburgh, 11-day stand down period for that head knock. Oh, the Raiders probably go into this game as favourites, but I think the Dogs actually get a victory here. And I feel like the Raiders are one of these teams where they look fantastic sometimes, right up until the point that they don't and they completely drop the ball. I just need to see it more often. And I think they got a little bit lucky against Melbourne last week. I don't think you can win any game out of Golden Point without being a bit lucky. But again, I will say that the Dogs looked a little bit dodgy, but I think this game will be close. Let's go the Dogs, 1-12. Saturday afternoon, we go to Wynn Stadium in Wollongong, where the Dragons will be taking on the Warriors. Now, the Dragons really disappointed me last week. It was one of their weeks that they could have notched up a win, and I really thought they were going to get there. But as we said in the review for the week, Jaden Sewers' drop ball really cost them that game. 12-point swing, and they never recovered from it. For the Warriors, they looked scared towards the end of that game, I'm not going to lie. They looked rattled. They didn't know how to close out the game. They eventually did it, but I feel like the Cowboys ended up making more errors towards the end of that game that really cost us. And again, Jake Clifford's intercept, I think, closed the deal more in my mind than anything else. And I know it was 40 minutes out from the result of the game, but yeah, you can't underestimate a moment like that in any game of football. For the Warriors here, they're still going to be without Fisher Harris. They might get Watenis Lesniak back this week, and that's good for them. But no, Tuivasa-Sheck as well. I think Ali Tower is out. So they're missing some troops in their outside backs right now. It's not looking phenomenal, but they seem to keep winning games. And I think the Warriors are definitely overperforming right now. I think they're a good team. I don't think that they are top 4 potential team. Bottom of the 8, absolutely sure that 8th to 12th range is definitely where I have them finishing this year. But they're seeming to find ways out of games, and Metcalf is continuing to play outstanding football. I just think that this Dragon side, they get up for random wins at times, and especially being in Wollongong, the home fans are well and truly behind this team. They love it down there. They rarely lose in Wollongong. And I think that they can get this one done as well. So I'm actually going to back the Dragons get a victory here, but I do think it will be close. Let's go the Dragons, 1-12. The final game of Super Saturday is my North Queensland Cowboys taking on the Penrith Panthers at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Now, the Cowboys have already beaten the Panthers this year, but what I saw last week was very reminiscent of the Panthers that we've seen the last 4 years, and they only get better this week as Brian To'o is set to come back. Was having a little chat to him at the airport, gave me the all clear that he will be back this week, so expect to see Brian To'o named. They also get Mitch Kenny back this week, and I think that definitely helps their hooker rotation. Luke Summerton has been doing an admirable job in there, and I really like Luke Summerton. I think he can be very serviceable, but it doesn't help us as well that Ruben Cotter is going to be out for this game, and that just dims my hopes quite a lot. I love what Ruben brings to the side. He's our captain. He leads from the front. He leads by example as well. We have 2 captains that like to lead by example, Tom Dearden and Ruben Cotter. So a lot of that captaincy responsibility will be shouldered onto Tom Dearden this week, and he's playing some phenomenal football. In that comeback, he was absolutely instrumental, and I thought Drinkwater really came to life. When it all clicks for the Cowboys, it looks unbelievable. And I would like to echo something that Todd Payton said in the press conference after the game, is that he thinks that we're playing 80% of our full potential. And I do agree with that statement. And Jason Taumalolo is having a bit of a late career revival right now. His second stints have always been fantastic, but I love him playing front row because he gives that bend back the line energy, and we don't have another player like that in the side, and it's really noticeable when he's not in the team, and it's probably echoed by the fact that he didn't play the first couple of rounds of the season as well, and it's where we struggled. Getting that go forward is so important for our team to jump on the back of. We have such great outside back play in the form of Purdue, Taulagi, and Drinkwater. And I think Robert Derby is getting better each week. But this Panthers side, if they come out and play the way that they played last week, we won't get to play like that. There'll be a lot of ball in play. It'll get a bit tiring. I think the Cowboys' fitness is up there with some of the best in the competition. We've shown that definitely this year. But I just think this Panthers team, especially with Ruben Cotter being out, will get the win here. Unfortunately, Cowboys fans, maybe I should believe my team a little bit more, but I think the Panthers get a win here, 1-12. We go to Sunday's games now, and the Storm will be taking on the Tigers at Amy Park. Now, the Storm, they look a bit fragile at the moment, definitely missing Harry Grant in the middle of the field. He's also their captain, so there is that leadership aspect as well. And I thought they started really well in that game, as they start games really well. They're one of the best, first 20 minutes of the game teams in the competition. And they really let it slip. They let the Raiders come back into the game. They couldn't really handle the Raiders' power game, and that's something that they're going to have to contend with this week, as Big Terrell May doesn't really have anyone to run against. I know Stefano is being talked about as improving this year, but he's not a big minute guy, and Terrell May could be terrorizing this Melbourne defense for upwards of 70 minutes in this game. And I really do give the Tigers a shot, and it'll be the first time in 7 years, actually, that they beat Melbourne if they are to get over the line. But there's one thing that you have to remember in this competition. It's death, taxes, and Melbourne off a loss. And I can't pick the Tigers this week, as Melbourne went down last week. They would be a little bit angry about that one too. Probably didn't deserve the penalty in the end of the game. And I do think the Tigers are a little bit dodgy. They can leak a few points here and there. Their defense is a little bit questionable, and Melbourne certainly have the attack to be able to put them away. The Tigers really haven't played any genuine competition this year, or at least teams that I see as being contenders for the comp this year. It's their first big task as the club that they are wanting to be. Hopefully they put in a good performance, but I think the Storm get away with a win here, 13+. The last game of the round is the Manly Sea Eagles taking on the Cronulla Sharks. Now, the Sea Eagles had a great win going into the bye round, but I would say that their form this year has been extremely patchy, especially off the back of DCE's announcement. Yes, as I said, they got a great win going into the bye, but will that continue? That is the big question for them in this game against Cronulla, who have a pretty good record at Four Pines Park. They've won their last 3 games at the venue, but this Cronulla side are very different this year. I feel like they've gotten a lot of help in recent years from the draw. They're not playing to their full potential at all, and I said that way earlier in the video, but I want to highlight something that I think they need to go back to, and it is that right side. It's one of the best right edges in the competition. Nico Hines, Nick Cora, Ramian, and Stone Street. And when Katoa's in there, I would say it almost gets better. But no doubt Stone Street has scored a lot of tries this year, but I feel like Will Kennedy has raised his level to a point where he's become more of a focal point in their attack. And I don't necessarily love to put Will Kennedy up there as one of the best fullbacks in the NRL. He's not your Latrell Mitchell. He doesn't have like outstanding tackle breaking ability, but he's very elusive. And then he's not your Ryan Pappenhausen. He's not Tedesco, Edwards. These guys offer things very differently. But Kennedy's increase in form has coincided with the Sharks not actually playing that well. So I'm wondering whether Will Kennedy needs to go back to that support play, not trying to involve himself as much, not fight for the extra yardage, but you can't take anything away from him. He's playing fantastic football this year. But as I said, I feel like that right edge for the Sharks will cook this week. They're going against Ben Trebojevic, Luke Brooks, Tolu Kola, and I think it's Lehigh Hopewadi on that side. So I expect a few tries to be scored on the right side for the Sharks. And I think the Sharks get a victory here, 1-12. So that's it for the video this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about my tips down in the comments section below. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week. Make sure that you download the TBC Live app. The link is in the description below. And I'll catch you on the next one.